Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, I came across this article that I must read for you. Now it has to do with the drought conditions that are occurring in our Midwest and Western states. Now you all know that we are experiencing a mega drought that is the worst going back 1,200 years. And although we are having shortages of this and that, fertilizer, all the other chemicals that farmers need, it seems that this mega drought that we are still in the middle of will have a more dire impact on our crops than the things that we are missing or the things that are more expensive like fertilizer. Let me just go ahead and shut up and read this for you, because this article is very telling, and more importantly, it allows you to look out and see what's happening. And if you see some of these things happening in the next several months, it will alert you as to, A, step up your prepping. You should be prepping as much as you can right now, because right now we are in the middle of what will be a major food crisis, not only in the US but worldwide. And even though people may not starve here in the US, they will have to depend on lesser quality foods, because the price of food here is going to escalate at a pace that will definitely outpace and continue to outpace inflation. So that's what I'm trying to bring to you here. I'm trying to bring to you some information that you can look out into the future. And if you see that A or B or C is happening, then you know that we are getting closer to a point where food scarcity may become a fact of life for us here in the United States. Ask yourselves one question before I start reading, all right? If you are skeptical about this, about there being a food shortage worldwide, ask yourself just one question. Why did China stock up more than half of the world's grains last year? Why? China is known as a country that likes to study history. They look back at the past to see what's coming in the future. It's just like you've heard 1,000 times. History doesn't repeat itself, but it quite often rhymes. But ladies and gentlemen, what are the odds that maybe it does repeat itself on certain things, like this mega drought, like the food shortages that we're having? All right, all of these other things that we've talked about, war, fertilizer shortages, the government paying farmers not to farm, or whatever that may be. I haven't really been able to confirm any of that, specifically, so I'm not going to go ahead and say that that's a fact. But we have left out nature. What is nature going to do? Well, let's take a look. Food prices in the US have already been soaring, and now we are on track for an absolutely horrible winter wheat harvest. Now remember that wheat and corn, and I would say soybeans as well, are the three major crops that we depend on in order to feed the population as a whole. Although a lot of people may not like those three individual crops, it is what's in most of our food, including our meat. Of course, this comes at a time when the war on the other side of the globe is going to greatly reduce wheat exports from Russia and Ukraine, and we already know that. Over the last 12 months, the price of wheat has already risen 69%, and now this crisis threatens to go to an entirely new level. Due to extreme drought, winter wheat is in very bad shape in the states such as Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. The following comes from one of the most prominent agricultural websites in the entire country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just so as you know, winter wheat is usually planted like in the fall or the autumn, right before winter, and then they just lay dormant over the winter with the snow over them and everything, and then in the spring they're supposed to start sprouting out. Okay, but what happens if there's not enough water on the ground? What happens if they didn't get enough snow coverage over those states over the winter so that it can feed the ground the water that it needs for that winter wheat to start sprouting? Some farmers in southwestern Kansas, the top US wheat producing state, have not received much measurable rain or snow since October. Winter wheat is planted in autumn, lays dormant in winter, and begins sending up green shoots in spring. Proper soil moisture is critical at this stage for the crop to thrive. More than half of Kansas was classified as under severe drought or worse as of March 8th. March 8th this year, ladies and gentlemen. And this article is only a day old. The driest conditions since 2018, according to the National Drought Mitigation Center. Severe drought is also covering 3/4 of Oklahoma and more than 2/3 of Texas, both of which are also large wheat producers. If that sounds really bad, that is because it really is. That same article also discussed the fact that winter wheat was severely damaged by windstorms that brought Dust Bowl conditions to Kansas. The coming weeks will be critical, and this is where I'm getting at, that I'm trying to get you information here that you can look out for in the future. So here he says the coming weeks will be critical in the Southern Plains wheat crops, said Lucas Hagg. Many farmers apply fertilizer to maximize crop potential, but moisture is needed to carry the nutrients to the plant's root. Wheat plants damaged by the December windstorm that brought Dust Bowl conditions to Kansas face additional drought problems because plants have been weakened either by the sandblast effect of the blowing dust and dirt or by soil nutrients lost from the 100-mile-per-hour winds. How many years have I been writing about the Dust Bowl conditions would return to the middle of the country? Now it has happened. And we were talking about Dust Bowl conditions more than a year ago, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been here that long. And forecasters are telling us that abnormally dry conditions will likely continue across much of the nation for the foreseeable future. Abnormally dry to exceptionally drought conditions are expected to persist across 60% of the continental U.S. as spring in the northern hemisphere begins. Forecasters expect little to no rain for certain parts of western U.S. all the way through June. From April through June, above average temperatures are expected from southwest to the east coast and north through the Midwest, according to a new outlook published by the NOAA. And NOAA's map shows a greater than 50% chance of drought persistence for nearly 60% of the continental U.S. We have been witnessing very strange weather patterns all over the globe in recent months, and that is one of the reasons why major agricultural commodity prices have been spiking dramatically. Over the past year, wheat prices are up 69%. Among other major food exports of Russia and Ukraine, corn prices are up 36% and barley 82%. Now, war in Ukraine has created an immense supply shock, and this is going to have ripple effects that are felt all across the planet. Ukraine is normally one of the key breadbaskets of the world, but now the invasion has changed everything. Ukraine's top agricultural export products are corn and wheat. Before the invasion, Ukraine was the second largest supplier of grains for the European Union and one of the largest suppliers for emerging markets in Asia and Africa. Breaking down the numbers, Ukraine produced 49.6% of global sunflower oil, 10% of global wheat, 12.6% of global barley, and 15.3% of corn. Collectively, Russia and Ukraine typically account for a very large chunk of global agricultural exports. Now, ladies and gentlemen, realize this, that the wheat harvest hasn't even sprouted yet, or is barely began to sprout. So even if in Ukraine and in Russia the wheat is sprouting and they have a good harvest, we are not yet to that part of the year where the demand for that new wheat has been met. So once the demand for that wheat, normally, sometime this year, which will be probably in the summer or something like that, whenever they harvest winter wheat, when the demand for that wheat is normally met, that is when we are going to start to feel the pain the greatest. Because right now we are still eating off of last year's wheat, winter wheat. But the winter wheat for this year hasn't been harvested yet, and it's not ready yet. And we are not in the time frame where it would be ready yet. But because of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and now with the Dust Bowl conditions that we're having here in the U.S., when it comes time for that wheat to be harvested, are we going to have what we need to take us into next year, up to the next winter wheat harvest? I hope that what I'm saying makes sense. They continue to say, for the global food market, there are few worse countries to be in conflict than with Russia and Ukraine. Over the past 5 years, they have together accounted for nearly 30% of the exports of the world's wheat, 17% of the corn, 32% of the barley, a crucial source of animal feed, and 75% of sunflower seed oil, an important cooking oil in some parts of the world. I was listening to an interview today with Miss Lynette Zhang, and I believe the gentleman was from Bulgaria. Don't quote me on that. But he said that when they found out that Ukraine was, being invaded, that they were having panic buying of sunflower oil in their supermarkets, and that some people were getting beat over the head. And I believe that a gentleman lost his life for a bottle of oil, ladies and gentlemen. So what are we going to do now? I have not found a single person that has a reasonable solution to that question. And ladies and gentlemen, remember that the President of the United States said that we are going into a food shortage, right? He said that. So to me, that sounds like a problem. But he didn't follow it up with what a president should follow it up with. What are we going to do about it? In other words, there isn't going to be nearly enough food for everyone. I told you once, and I've told you several times, that food shortages would start with prices. People would get priced out of food. And eventually, it would end with scarcity, meaning that there was not going to be enough food to go around. Physical food. All right, ladies and gentlemen? So this is what we need to look out for. If you are prepping slow and steady, continue to do so. But if it were me, I would try to ramp it up as much as I could. And if we get down to the part of the year where we are supposed to be harvesting that winter wheat, and I'll keep an eye out for this, all right? That way I can warn you, or I can do a video and show you, yeah, we're not really getting nearly enough what we're supposed to be getting. Because ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we are going, even if we have a shortage, even if we don't have enough, I believe that our government will allow wheat exports to continue. I believe that we will continue as a nation, as the United States of America, we will continue to export our food, even if we don't have enough for us here. So just be on the lookout to see, because wheat is a huge part of our diet, whether you think so or not. This is exactly what we have been warned about, and we will soon see the global price of food reach heights that would have only once been unimaginable. And I agree with that 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, the price of food is going to skyrocket in the months and years to come. Look, I've been talking about this for years, and unfortunately, last year, I remember January of last year, I told you all, I went on record and I said something that I thought was, a little bit out there, but I said, I think that this year we will see the price of food, the things that we need to live, go up by 50%. And I believe that I was right. I believe that the price of food, for the most part, did go up by about 50% across the board when it comes to those things that we need to live. I'm not talking about a Big Mac. I'm not talking about candy and stuff like that, but things that we need to live, like oil, like sugar. Sugar went up quite a bit. I don't think sugar went up a whole 50%, but it went up at least a good 30% looking back. But the things that we need to eat, and this year, ladies and gentlemen, I put myself out there already this year saying that we were going to have at least another 50 to 100% increase in the price of foods. This is the time to get what you need. In light of these developments, I am encouraging all of my readers to take action. Stock up on food while prices are still relatively stable, because it looks like things are about to start getting a little bit crazy, or really crazy. And ladies and gentlemen, I just hope that you've been heeding the warning. I hope that this video reaches at least one person that hasn't come across this type of video before, or this channel before, and maybe you can do a little bit of your own research and realize that you need to stock up on food. All right, ladies and gentlemen, stock up on food. All right, it's good to have all of the prepper toys out there, but food should be the priority. Of course, you all know how I feel about being able to defend the things that will keep your family alive. Having said that, I hope that you have a great weekend. We'll see you tomorrow on Sunday at 9 a.m. Alaska time, 1 p.m. Eastern time for our Sunday live stream. It'll be open house. I think we have a great time when we have an open house and we just chit chat back and forth. Hopefully we won't have too many bad solar winds, all right? And we'll have a decent reception. Other than that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand that not everyone is in the part of their preparedness plan where they should be storing long-term freeze-dried food. But if you are, take a look at Nutrient Survival. I stand behind this food because it is the most nutrient-dense food in the market. It tastes great. They have outstanding customer service, and the company is run by great people that I call my friends. You're not going to find a more nutrient-dense food that tastes good and is reasonably priced when compared to other major brands. I wouldn't stand behind Nutrient Survival if I didn't personally use it and love it. So feed your freedom with Nutrient Survival.